Good morning, boys and girls. Do you remember yesterday when we read our nonfiction reader about donuts? And do you remember they talked about building a donut tower? Look what I did this morning. I built a donut tower. Isn't that so cool? And I thought it would be a fun way to start our story this morning. The story we're going to read is called Arnie the Doughnut. If you are a first grader, you probably remember reading Arnie the Doughnut when we had our donut party. Do you remember? Well, the second graders haven't had a chance to read it. So I thought that since we had been talking about donuts this week, it might be fun to read Arnie the Doughnut again so that our second graders get a chance to listen to it. So that's the story we're going to read this morning. Because guess what? No tests during homeschool time. We're not going to have any tests. So we're going to read and enjoy our story. Arnie the Doughnut. See up here it says fresh donuts inside. I wonder if there really are fresh donuts inside. Let's see. Arnie the Doughnut by Laura Keller. Can you see what they're doing? Are they mixing up the dough to make donuts? All right, let's begin. Arnie turned out to be just the kind of donut he hoped he'd be. Chocolate covered with bright colored candy sprinkles. He was made very early in the morning at the downtown bakery, home of the best donuts around. Haha, get that? Round. Arnie was proud to be one of the best. He knew that people all over town made special trips to his bakery to buy donuts of their very own. As Arnie sat on the tray, which had just been placed in the donut case, he took a moment to reflect on the amazing things that had happened to him that morning. Number 1, he was cut into a ring. Through the machine, whee, and was cut into a ring. Number 2, he was deep fried in boiling hot oil. Ouch! Quit it! I'm soaking in boiling grease, but I love it. For a donut, it was like swimming in a swimming pool, or maybe a hot tub. Number 3, cooled. I remember that. He's cool enough. Here's your drink, sir. Thanks. Number 4, iced. That doesn't mean that they put ice on them. That means frosting. Vanilla icing, chocolate icing. Hey, who's that handsome donut? Number 5, he was sprinkled. That tickles. Caution, sprinkle area. Must wear safety goggles. Number 6, he was named. Whenever I'm named, I'm going to go by Cool Iced D. But his name tag said Arnie. Arnie looked around and saw all sorts of donuts sitting nearby. There was a cinnamon twist, a long john, donut holes, jelly-filled, crullers, powdered, chocolate zebra. There was even a rare square donut. There was an eclair, a plain donut, iced chocolate, cream-filled, apple fritter, and various muffins. He tried to strike up a conversation with an apple fritter on the next tray over, but she didn't seem to want to talk. "Hey, how about that deep fryer? Are you any relation to Larry Fritter? Want to count my sprinkles?" It's rather early. Maybe she's not a morning donut, Arnie supposed. It was 6 a.m. and the baker had just hung the open sign in the window. Arnie was fascinated as he watched customers stream into the bakery. One by one, donuts were chosen, placed in paper bags, and whisked away with their new owners. Some went by the dozen in giant boxes. "I've been sent to collect the tasty fried sweet crystal-coated cake discs. Is this the proper coordinates?" The caveman said, "Donut make good real." There's Arnie. "Goodbye!" Arnie yelled to each donut. "Have a great trip." "This is so exciting. I wonder who will choose me." Just then, Arnie looked up and saw a man pointing right at him. "Moi?" Moi in French is the word for me. He learned it. Before he could say another word, he was pulled from the tray and placed in a paper bag. A paper bag of his very own. "Goodbye, everyone." "Thank you, Mr. Bing. Have a nice day," Arnie heard the baker say to the man. "Mr. Bing, that's a fine name," Arnie decided. "I can hardly wait to meet him." The grand exit that Arnie imagines. He's so excited to meet the person that bought him. The ride to Mr. Bing's apartment was a little bumpy. Arnie was grateful for the soft napkin the baker had so thoughtfully placed in underneath him in the bag. He had never ridden in a car and wished he could look out the window to see all the sights, but more than anything, he wished he could meet Mr. Bing. "Why does he keep me in this bag?" Arnie wondered. Finally, the car stopped and they were home. Mr. Bing carefully removed Arnie from his paper bag and placed him on a clean, shiny plate. "What a handsome plate," Arnie said to himself. "I'm not crazy about the design. I prefer a more modern look, but it's nothing a little paint can't fix." Mr. Bing gently lifted Arnie from his new plate. "Isn't that cute?" thought Arnie as he closed his eyes and smiled. "He wants to hold me." Do you think that's what Mr. Bing wants to do? Hold Arnie? As Arnie relaxed in Mr. Bing's hand, he felt himself moving higher and higher and higher away from his plate. When he opened his eyes to see where he was going, he discovered that he was headed straight for Mr. Bing's open mouth. Ah! "What are you doing?" shouted Arnie. Mr. Bing was stunned. He dropped Arnie back onto the plate. "Oh, I was going to eat you," he replied in shock. Eat me? Arnie shrieked, his sprinkles flying everywhere. Why would you do a thing like that? Do you make a habit of eating all your house guests? No, of course not. So why then did it suddenly occur to you to eat me? Arnie demanded. Well, because you're a donut. That's what donuts are for, to eat. Do you mean to tell me you've done this before? Yes, I eat a donut every day, Mr. Bean said sheepishly. Arnie froze. He felt sick. Ugh, and frightened. I'd better get out of here before he tries to eat me again. And angry. Well, that explains why my friends never write or call. They've probably all been eaten. He thought to himself for a moment. I must put a stop to this right away. I'll call the bakery and warn the others. Whoever's left, that is. Arnie knew that there was no time to waste and that he needed to be very sneaky in order to keep his plan from Mr. Bean. He turned to Mr. Bean and said in the sweetest voice, Excuse me, sir, but I don't believe we've been properly introduced. My name is Arnie. Hello, Arnie, Mr. Bean stammered. I'm Mr. Bean. It's nice to meet you. Mr. Bean, would you be a dear and allow me to use your telephone? Arnie asked politely. Well, okay, said Mr. Bean, and he handed Arnie the phone. As quickly as he could, Arnie dialed the number of the bakery. The baker answered the phone. Downtown Bakery, home of the best. Mr. Baker Man, Arnie frantically whispered. This is Arnie the Doughnut. Do you remember me? You made me at 5:15 this morning, and I was bought about 20 minutes ago by a man who goes by the name of Mr. Bean. Yes, Arnie, the baker answered. What can I do for you? Now, I don't want to alarm you, but just moments ago, that man tried to eat me. And not only that, he claims to have eaten hundreds of us. I'm going to make a run for it, but I wanted to warn you so that if you see him coming into the bakery again, you can stop him. Oh, Arnie, I thought you understood. That's why I make donuts, for people to eat. Oh, I can't believe it, Arnie gasped. Are the other donuts aware of this arrangement? Well, I think so, the baker said. Let me ask them to make sure. Showing signs of donut disgust and shock, he feels like someone has punched a hole right through the middle of him. The baker yelled to the other donuts, Hey, do you donuts know that you're going to be eaten? Yes, we know, the donuts shouted back. We're delicious. People love us. We're very popular. C'est magnificent. Try us for yourself. Did you hear that, Arnie? The baker asked. Arnie was crushed. The phone dropped out of his hand. He had heard all he needed to hear. Arnie forgot all about his escape plan. He collapsed back onto the plate, glanced up at Mr. Bean and muttered, All right then, let's just get this over with. Go ahead and eat me. Mr. Bean gazed down at Arnie. I'm not going to eat you, Arnie, he said reassuringly. I just wouldn't feel right about it now. Really? Arnie said with a huge sigh of relief. Well, I'm glad to see that you've come to your senses. But since I'm not going to eat you, Mr. Bean continued, I'll have to figure out something else to do with you. I paid good money for you. I don't want to be wasteful. Oh, of course not, Arnie agreed. What we need to do is each make a list of things I can do with you instead of eating you. Between the two of us, I know we'll come up with something. Good plan, Mr. Bing, Arnie said. This will be a breeze. I bet I'm good at lots of stuff. They both feverishly wrote down their ideas. When they were finished, Mr. Bing asked, "Would you like to read yours first?" "Sure thing, Mr. Bing," Arnie answered. What do you think Arnie's going to say that he would be good at instead of being eaten? Things Mr. Bing can do with me instead of eating me. Do you need a ballroom dance partner? No, I don't dance. You could use a personal fitness trainer. Drop and give me 20. I'd get too sweaty. How about a portrait painter? Oh, heavens no. Would you like me to entertain at your parties? Don't it make my brown eyes blue? I don't like throwing parties. Well, I could be your chauffeur. Look out for that tree. But you can't even see over the steering wheel. I'd make a great bodyguard. Who could you protect me from? A cookie? All righty, Mr. Bing, let's hear what you came up with. Okie dokie, he replied. I just know you'll like some of these. What do you think Mr. Bing's ideas are going to be? Things I can do with Arnie instead of eating him. I could use you for a pincushion. Ouch! Too painful. How about an air freshener for my car? Hi, Arnie, you smell good enough to eat. How about not? Would you like to be a picture frame? I don't imagine so. I need a new bowling ball. Well, don't look at me. You'd make a fine paperweight. Keep up the good work, Arnie. Boring. Then what about a doorstop? Try again. But there was nothing else on Mr. Bing's list. They were both completely out of ideas. Arnie and Mr. Bing were exhausted. They felt terribly disappointed. After a few minutes of awkward silence, Mr. Bing finally spoke. I'm sorry, Arnie, but it's clear that we can't agree on anything for you to do around here. This is difficult for me to say, but I think it would be best if you found another home. I know, said Arnie, fighting back tears. I'll just be on my way then. Is it all right if I keep this napkin to pack up all my loose sprinkles? Of course, Mr. Bing replied sadly. As soon as I get a job, I'll pay you back the money you spent on me. Oh, that's not necessary, Arnie. Arnie shook Mr. Bing's hand and thanked him for his kindness. Mr. Bing opened the door, and as Arnie left, he paused and said, I guess donuts really are only good for eating, aren't they? They both waved goodbye, and Arnie was gone. Mr. Bing stood at the window and watched as Arnie walked away. He walked past the flower beds, the mailboxes, and the apartment manager's office. Remember how happy I was at the beginning of the story? I can't read, but you sure looked happy. He passed the tennis court and the swimming pool and the clubhouse. Is that a donut? Yeah, whatever. Anyway, about my trip abroad. But when Arnie reached the No Dogs Allowed sign at the end of the driveway, Mr. Bing suddenly came up with a new idea. What do you think his idea is going to be? Arnie, wait up, yelled Mr. Bing as he ran after him. Arnie turned back and stopped. When Mr. Bing caught up with him, he was out of breath. I can't believe I didn't think of this earlier, Mr. Bing panted. Arnie, I've always wanted a dog and I could never have one because they're not allowed here. But there's no sign that says, no donuts allowed. Arnie perked up when he realized what Mr. Bing was thinking. It's a wacky idea, but it just might work. Would you like to take walks and play fetch? Mr. Bing asked excitedly. You bet I would. Can you do tricks like rolling over? Rolling over? Look at me. I was made for rolling over. Well then, there's only one thing left to ask. Arnie, will you be my donut dog? Oh, Mr. Bing, I would love to be your donut dog. From that moment on, Arnie and Mr. Bing were inseparable. Arnie liked being a donut dog even better than he liked being a donut. Get it, Arnie? Bye, Arnie. Bye, Mr. Bing. I got the deluxe package. He went through a short phase of chewing on furniture and barking at the mailman, but after a crash course in obedience school, he graduated first in his class. Congratulations, Arnie. You're so sticky. Yes, you are. I love that, Arnie. Got a napkin? What a darling dog. What a darling man. Is that a donut dog? Everywhere the two of them went, people would stop to pet Arnie. No one had ever seen a donut dog before. Arnie and Mr. Bing had so much fun together. Arnie was the best pet Mr. Bing could ever have hoped for, and Mr. Bing was Arnie's best friend. Beware of donut. They changed dog to donut. Boys and girls, if you had a donut and you wanted it to be something different than a donut, what would you have your donut be? Later today, we're going to do a craft, and you're going to get to make a paper donut. When you finish, on the back of that donut, I'd like you to write and tell me what you would want your donut to be if you decided not to eat him. Thanks for listening. See you soon. Bye.